Good morning. Today is the 5th day of Av, the 23rd of July. And we're starting a new parasha, VaEtchanan. VaEtchanan literally means I beseeched, I prayed. It's one of the 10 words used in Hebrew to designate prayer. And here Moses is praying to God that he shouldn't have to die. And that he was hoping that after he had vanquished Sichon and Og, the Amorites, that he was now in a position to ask God to forgive him for what had happened, and that he would be permitted to enter the land of Israel. And this is discussed a lot about what the purpose of entering the land of Israel would be. Some people say, does he need? The Medrash says, sages say, does he need to eat from its fruit? Does he need to drink from its waters? He doesn't need either of these things. He wanted to perform the commandments that can only be performed in the land of Israel. It's a very interesting thing in and of itself that of the 613 commandments, we can only perform 270 today because we don't have most of the Jews living in the land of Israel and there's no temple. So Moses wanted to do all that. He wanted to remedy that situation and be able to perform all the commandments. Today is also the day of passing of the Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Luria, who basically took all of Kabbalah that was before him, specifically based on what he had studied himself in the Zohar, and provided what seemed in the beginning to be an entirely new interpretation. But as time progressed and people began to master what he had said, and apparently he had said this in a very short period of time, they began to understand that it was also building upon the early Kabbalah that was developed from about the time of the Temple and on. So what I thought we'd do today is we take this story of Moses trying to convince God to let him live, and we'll see it through the eyes of Rabbi Isaac Luria. And we'll see how he abstracts an issue in the Torah in such a way that it becomes relevant for much more than what it seems at face value in the beginning. And this abstraction that he creates is all based in the end on sayings from the sages, from verses elsewhere in the Bible. And in today's reading, the verses that are most important to him are verse 26. Just verse 26. Also 28 a little bit. Let's see this verse. What does it say? But God was angry with me because of you. Moses says he was angry with me because of you. Who's you? The people. And he did not heed me. God said to me, what you have prayed so far suffices for you. Speak to me no more regarding this matter. And those are basically the words. The word he was angry, in this case, Vayitaber Hashem bi le'manchem. Vayitaber means a number of things. It does mean anger, but by Rabbi Isaac Luria, the more important derivation is from the word that means to be pregnant. Ibur. Ibur, when a woman is pregnant, she's called me'uberet. When a year has 13 months instead of 12, which we call an intercalated year, then it's called a shana me'uberet, because it's as if it's pregnant with something more. And so, what does the Arizal read here? He hears, on the one hand, God is telling Moses, you can't continue to live. You will die. However, he's also telling him at the same time, not that I'm angry with you, Vayitaber Hashem bi le'manchem, that God was angry at me because of you, but rather, he made me pregnant because of you. That's how he wants to read it. What does he gain from this? What he gains is the whole secret of incarnation or reincarnation in the Arizal's teachings. He gets this connection now. And he explains like this: Moses is, as the sages say, the first redeemer and the final redeemer. He is everything. But he also, according to the Arizal, has to come back in every generation. In other words, he is constantly, or his soul root is constantly pregnant, and it's constantly bringing down a leader in every generation that is meant to continue the work of Moses. What is his work? What is he supposed to do? Obviously, the Torah he's already given. He's led the people to the land of Canaan, to the very border, and he anointed or set his student Joshua to take them in. What more can he do? What more is left for him to do? What is Moses supposed to do in every generation? So the Arizal explains that the work that he started in his first lifetime is the work that he continues in all his lifetimes. What was the work that he started in his lifetime? One might think, well, he brought the Torah down. But we said he already did that, he finished that, he completed that. The Torah was not just meant to tell people what God wanted from them, but rather, as the Arizal explains, the Torah is meant to straighten our thoughts, our consciousness. It's meant to be not just a rule book, but it's meant to be a way for a person to change their mindset, to clear their mind from false fears, to focus their mind on the main purpose of life, to understand what God expects, but not just in the sense of fulfilling His commandments, but much more than that, in terms of what does it mean to be a human being. That is Moses' real purpose. In his first incarnation, we already said at the beginning of the introduction to the book of Deuteronomy that he's considered to be the first reincarnation of Abel. So there he didn't live very long. He didn't really get a chance to do what he was supposed to do. But in this incarnation, this main incarnation that he's Moses, he brings down the Torah. And that is the primary tool with which he straightens the mind, is how the Arizal calls it. Umiyasher et hadeot. In fact, in the Zohar, Moses is compared almost to everything. But the thing he's most compared to, or is most corresponded to, is the sphera of da'at. Da'at literally means consciousness or knowledge, but in a modern sense it's consciousness. And so Moses is the general consciousness of the entire world. How do I know that he's also the entire world? Because when they came out of Egypt, he made it a point to take out a great mixed multitude, which is called the Erev Rav. And the Erev Rav is basically people who are either the sons of male Jews who were not married to women who were Jewish, which is very common today also. They were children of people who half converted, or not fully, or had gone back to Egyptian culture. They were and in the Arizal there's a lot more description, I don't want to get into it, of the sons born, or the people born, not even with any relationship to the Jewish people, but felt that they had an affinity. And because of this affinity, they wanted to tag along, they wanted to come, they wanted to follow Moses. They felt connected to him. God told him not to take them out. And yet Moses, he did what he felt was right, and he brought them along. The big hint here is that da'at, knowledge, consciousness, Moses' main sphera, is equal to Erev Rav. They both equal 474. And then says the Arizal, in every generation that Moses comes back, he comes back to fix, to rectify the consciousness of this mixed multitude. Now, when somebody reads the Zohar, they can easily come to a conclusion that the mixed multitudes in every generation are Jews who are not really Jews. And believe me, there have been movements, terrible movements, they didn't do anything violent, but they ostracized certain people that they felt didn't have the right opinions. Usually these people were very bad for the Jewish people. They were people who were what we call Muslim, that they used to build blood libels. Jews, not just non-Jews. It actually usually started from a Jew. And they did other things that were terrible to the people. In the time of World War II, there were many people who were called this by the victims of the Nazis. People who cooperated with the Nazis. Because the Nazis in the end tried to kill everyone, but they needed some help from the inside in the beginning. And today in modern Israel, there's a lot of people that will call those who are against the nationhood and the army and this and that, they'll call them Erev Rav. But if you read, that's a true conclusion that you can come to from the Zohar. But the Arizal takes the Zohar and he also abstracts it. And he says like this: the Erev Rav, which is equal to Dat, is the improper thoughts, the misaligned consciousness that we all have. There is not a single person in the world that doesn't suffer from this. And so it's not about pedigree, and it's not about identifying someone as being positive or being negative. It's about recognizing that even those people who point at others and say, you're not really part of the people because you're against us and you do this and you do that, they themselves, we ourselves, we all suffer from misalignments like that. We all suffer from these problems. And so says the Arizal, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses has to come back in every generation. And there's not a generation, he says, that he doesn't come back to be with us. And he tries to straighten out our misaligned consciousness. And he says something amazing about this verse that we just mentioned. Ravlach. Al tosef daber elayot badavar hazeh. Enough. Do not speak to me anymore about this matter that you want to go into the land of Israel. Ostensibly, that's what he's saying. Says Rabbi Isaac Luria, Ravlach means you have a rabbi. What does it mean? Literally, that's what it means. Ravlach, you have a Rav. It means, he says, that in his first incarnation, Moses was the rabbi of everyone else. But from then on, when he comes back into the world, he needs himself to have a teacher. He's not learned by himself. He actually learns from someone else. And he says, more often than not, that teacher is Elijah the prophet. And we know that by the Baal Shem Tov, he recognized not Elijah as being the one who was teaching him, but rather Elijah's teacher, Elisha, the prophet Elisha. But in any case, this person who comes to straighten our minds, to teach us the correct path, again, not just in terms of what do we need to do, but also about how to think correctly, how to clear our imagination from the false fears that it has and the false connections and so on, is the leader of the generation, the one who straightens the mind of the Jewish people. But mind you, again, he says, it does not take more than 30 days from the passing of the first one to the coming of the next one. There can't be more than a gap of 30 days in which the Moses of the generation is not present. So we'll end with this today, this first reading, which is very, very pertinent to the Arizal himself, of course, who was the Moses of his generation, Rabbi Isaac Luria, whose day of passing is today, the 5th of Av, and hope to see you tomorrow 2 hours earlier. One small point, from tomorrow we won't be using this Zoom room. I'm going to, in a moment, put a link in the chat. I hope everybody can copy it. I'll leave the chat open until you can. We'll be using a different room, and if you have any questions, you can write to me. I'll also write my email address and send it to you also if you need it that way.
Thank you so much, Robert.
So let me just put this in.